something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day folks, how are you? I hope you're having a good sort of a Monday night. Sorry about last Friday. I went down like the proverbial bag of dark and screwy stuff Friday afternoon. I wound up hitting the bed about 3, 4 o'clock. Didn't wake up until 9 o'clock and then got up only briefly to be sick and go back to bed again. Saturday didn't feel much better, but got a bit of love and support from a lot of you, which got me through it. Thank you so much. And yesterday started to feel a little bit better. And today is what it is. We push on regardless. I hope you are well and that your weekend wasn't a bad one. If you're located in the storm areas, then quite possibly you've got some damage in your part of the woods. I know there was in ours. So, and not just limited to trees and associated other bits and pieces around here. Managed to pick up a new guest for a week or 3, which will be interesting. And that is a baby magpie that was blown out of its nest. It is a fledgling, so it can't actually fly yet. And it is a magnificent little thing. I think I'll call it Fledge. At any rate, I found it about 2 days ago, and it was just flopping around on the ground here. Mum and Dad were still around trying to feed it, which was a good sign. But it seemed to have some problems with its left wing. And anyway, took it in. It's eaten better than I have over the last couple of days with steak and God knows whatever else I've been feeding it. It's doing quite well. It's eating, drinking. It's quite healthy in that regard. It's just having real problems stretching a wing out. So today we took it to the vet, and I only take things like that to the vet on the proviso that if it does need care, then it comes back and either it comes to me or goes to another carer somewhere. Because I don't like what they tend to do with these birds, especially if you take them to places like the RSPCA. You find a little thing like that they don't spend much time on if there's something wrong with it. So, and if it's able to be rehabilitated, they generally don't. So keep an eye out later on tonight on the Voice of Freedom channel, because I took it into the vet earlier today, expecting it to either not come back to me or if it did, probably tomorrow. But it turns out it's coming back tonight. So I've got to go after the show. I've got to go into town and go and get it. And bring it back. So I'll do a little live with Fledge then. I'm just waiting for some photos that I did take earlier today, and they have turned up. So I will just save those off so I can bring them up and show you. Cute little thing. I've never learned so much about magpies that I have in the last few days, I can tell you. But they are very smart, and Mum and Dad are exceptionally they're good parents, because they're still trying very hard to feed the little thing. And I've made that whole process a lot easier in that I've had a bit of steak, so I cut it up into very small bits. And while I have been feeding young Fledge by hand, and that'll give you a bit of an idea of young Fledge. I also go outside, and you can see Mum and Dad there in the background. I go outside and I take some of that steak out, put Fledge on the ground, and then throw that meat out to the bigger birds who come and get it, and then they come along and feed Fledge as well. So he's getting love from Mum and Dad. He's getting love from a strange fat fella in a bus, and hopefully, judging by what the vet had to say today, hopefully within a week or 2, we might start getting a few more flight feathers come in, because that seems to be the issue at the moment. He doesn't have too many flight feathers. He has a little brother or a bigger brother or sister that Mum and Dad are also feeding. That one is flying, so I expect this one will be flying in a few days. So we'll see how we go. But anyway, he's coming home tonight, back to the family in the morning, and first attempt at a little magpie. So looking forward to that. They're beautiful creatures, and Mum and Dad are very trusting of me. Pardon me, I was quite surprised that they would let me get near it, and they were very happy for me to get near it, and they came pretty close to me then. When I started feeding it and they could see that I was feeding it, they came closer again. One of them was just about ready to take the meat out of my hand, still just a little bit skittish, and I reckon by the end of tomorrow they'll be doing just that. I'd be much happier if Mum and Dad were feeding it than I was, because it's more natural. And I'll have some mealworms for it rather than steak. So I don't know how many times a magpie gets to eat steak in its real world diet, but it's probably not the best thing for it. We've got to put a little calcium in there too for the bones. But all things being equal in a beautiful world, we'll have a little fledgling magpie to keep us company for the next week or so. Got to say, I think I missed my calling somewhere along the line. I just really enjoy looking after animals. Might also be because they're a better class of human. Does that make sense? I don't know. Got to be careful about magpies too, because these bastards, particularly in Queensland, will tell you that you're stealing it or you're making it a pet or anything. Nothing could be further from the truth. Not interested in making it a pet, just making sure that it doesn't wind up in a python's jaws while it's sitting on the ground. And I know fledglings do get onto the ground a bit. They before they fly, they do could be up to 2 weeks on the ground before they fly, and that's learning to develop those wing muscles. So this one we think just got blown out of the nest a little bit early in the big storms that we had, and probably wasn't ready to be on the ground yet, and may have hurt, twisted a knee or leg or hurt the hip or something when it came out of the thing, because it does limp a bit, but it's fine. It's had x-rays. It's all good. So I'll show you some pictures later tonight if you want to be part of it. It'll take me about an hour after the show to get in there to pick it up. So, but I do have to pick it up, otherwise they're going to charge me a bloody fortune for having it there. And we all know, can't quite afford that. We're in the business of looking after donkeys generally, not necessarily magpies, but very happy to help the magpies. And if you want to help the donkeys, it's cheap, $2, simple as. Go to merch.vofhq.com and please buy a ticket in our lottery. You could win $750 cash, which, right now is something that we could really do with. All of us could do with a little extra cash. But if you fail to win that 750 nicker, we do have a 1 gram Ainsley minted gold bar for you this time round, donated by one of you in the family, or a couple of you in the family. Thank you so much. And we want to give it to you as soon as practical. And the only way that we can give it to you as soon as practical is to practically sell all the tickets. Now, I think there is just under 200 of them sold at the moment, so it probably leaves over 500 left at $2 each. And we will be splitting the funds that we make out of this with the Good Samaritan Donkey Sanctuary. Our last winner, God love them, donated the winnings back to the sanctuary. So they've picked up a good little bit out of our last lottery, which has helped them buy food. And I dare say it's not it'd be an or situation. They either got some more food or they got a bit of veterinary help, one of the two. And with 108 mouths, I think it is now at the Donkey Sanctuary to feed, and always growing. Anything we can do to help Sandy and Baz out there, I desperately want to do. So you can help them by just buying a $2 ticket in our lottery. It is that simple. You can help us if you want by joining our membership. It only costs, I think it's as little as $2.50, and you can join that at vofhq.com and just click on the membership link there. There's going to be a few interesting changes coming up in the next 12 months or so. Vince and I will speak more about those changes in the next month or so in the lead up to Christmas, but we plan from January to be doing a few more new and interesting things, which won't necessarily be here on the Voice of Freedom. We do have another channel, which is FBN, the Freedom Broadcasting Network. Pardon me. That was always, it has been set up in the background now for a couple of years, and for a variety of reasons, we haven't been able to execute on the plan to set it up the way that we wanted to. I take full responsibility for that because I had it in my head that I didn't want FBN to become another Voice of Freedom or another Carl channel, so to speak. I want it to be a channel for everybody in the movement and new voices in the movement, that kind of thing, that didn't or weren't swayed by me or needed to be pushed by me or whatever. Probably the wrong way to look at it, because I let Vince in charge of it. God love him, and he did everything he could. But at the end of the day, Vince is an IT guy who's used to setting up all the infrastructure that people like I use and need in a radio or a TV sense. And we're the ones, people like me, are the ones that do the creating. We're the ones that find the content. We find the creators. We find the talent. We hopefully massage the talent and put it together so that they can present something that is worthwhile, not just to them, but to an audience as well. So that's what FBN is meant to be, and that is what the plan for FBN is. And you can see Vince has thrown the link up there to the FBN Media YouTube channel. Now, I would encourage you to go and have a look. There isn't much content on there at the moment, and what content is on there is basically entirely produced by Vince. He does his coin toss program on there, so if you're into crypto, that's a good show to grab a hold of. And he also gets reasonably regularly, I think, Galactic Larry and Mark on board with him there to talk about that too. They're both deeply into crypto. They know much more about it than me. They follow the moves and the shakes of it on a daily basis. So if you are into crypto, that's a good channel to bookmark. Vince also has a talk or a chat program there where he does some interviews, and those interviews, pop up sporadically. So as he gets the opportunity to do them, he does them, and then he'll put them up. But we want to be able to create more with that, and that means that I'm probably going to need to encourage you to come over and see me do some other stuff, which will be very different to what happens with Voice of Freedom, but over on FBN. And we're going to start that with a bit of maintenance and life on the bus. We're talking about things. And look, I probably speak about it in such a way that makes it sound terribly dramatic, everything that's going on. At the end of the day, it's only dramatic if you're a useless bastard and can't fix these things yourself and have no access to knowledge. I'm not completely useless. I do have some skills. My problem is I'm very aware of creating more cost rather than fixing it. And for whatever reasons, during my youth, my father would let me have a go at just about everything, but I would usually wind up costing him money somewhere along the line. For instance, he sent me off to school to learn how to weld. I came home and welded my name into the top of his very expensive anvil. Not smart. But I got to learn how to use a hand file to get a weld out of a very expensive anvil. Took weeks, I can tell you, weeks. But got rid of it. I think he gave me the finest file he could just to teach me a lesson, just between you, me, and the gatepost. But anyway, we are here to learn these lessons, are we not? How did you go on Halloween? Did you get kids knocking on your door? I'm lucky I'm in a position here at the moment where if they came knocking on this door, it would have been a jungle trek for them to get to us. So I never saw anybody. And as it turned out, I was crook anyway, so I wouldn't have answered the door regardless. If you had a kid turned up who looked like this, I hope you gave that kid absolutely everything, because any kid who turned up trick-or-treating dressed like that, they deserve the full range of lollies. Absolutely the full range of lollies. I'm not a big fan, never have been a fan. I don't think any of us are what we would call fans of Halloween. It's certainly not something that I've... well, to be honest, I don't think I have ever done anything with Halloween. Now that I think about it, not ever. I don't think it was never big when I was a kid. It was always a bit of a curiosity. If anything, I probably would have liked to have carved a pumpkin, but never even got around to doing that, not even in my old age. So Halloween, not a big thing. And it was good to see so many Australians pushing back, that Halloween wasn't a thing, and you were leaving notes on doors saying, don't bother turning up here if you're begging for lollies and all that kind of thing. And the parents that get their noses out of joints about it, saying, oh, yeah, it's just a kid's thing. It's like, well, it's not. It's a satanic ritual. And you're asking your children to participate in it. It is the biggest satanic ritual of the year. And they hold all sorts of rituals leading up to it throughout the month of October. I find it a disgusting time of year. And maybe I feel it in such a way that it made me sick last Friday night. And I didn't do a show because of it. Because I literally felt bloody awful, wound up going to bed and sleeping. So I don't know how we re-educate our families into putting aside this Americanism, this satanic bullshit, but it has to be downplayed. It has to be taken out of the Australian ethos. It's not something we have ever celebrated, and it is not something that we should ever think about celebrating going forward. So a bit of late news you probably already know about. Kash Patel has reportedly stopped Tulsi Gabbard from investigating Charlie Kirk's assassination and its potential ties to a foreign intelligence operation. What does all that mean? Well, if you haven't been following it, Candace Owens has been exposing a great deal of information about the Turning Point team behind Charlie Kirk. She's also been exposing first-hand texts with him where he had outlined how his support of Israel was coming to an end. He was placed under a huge amount of pressure, apparently, allegedly. That pressure coming allegedly from Netanyahu and others within the intelligence agencies of Israel. He had faced so much pressure and had decided, because of not just the pressure that he was put under, but the way that he was put under pressure and the coercion and the tactics that they tried to use to get him to bend to their will, to say what they wanted him to say, he wasn't prepared to do. Now, the Turning Point team are not highlighting any of that, but Charlie certainly was. And in private text to Candace Owens and others, he has laid out exactly what was going on in the background. And he has also laid out in those texts that he expected to be killed by the Israeli intelligence service. Now, this is something mainstream media don't want to talk about, but it's also something that Trump's administration doesn't want anybody talking about. Tulsi Gabbard is going in all guns blazing. She is the DNI, the National Intelligence Director, and she has access to all the deep state documents. And I think that she is going without fear or favor and ploughing everything that she can into it to expose as much of the filth and coercion and lies that have been perpetrated against the public over the last 5 or 6 years, even longer. However, she can't prosecute. The FBI needs to prosecute. And for whatever reason, Kash Patel has told her to back off on this whole international conspiracy theory. I don't know how much truth there is to that, or why, if it is true, Kash Patel would be asking that to happen, unless there was already some form of investigation going on in the background. And if that is the case, all power to it. But if that isn't the case, why would he be asking her to back away from that information, to stop sharing that level of information? I think it's a couple of questions there worth answering, and he's not answering any of them at the moment. So, yeah, weird. Macquarie Bank not doing any more new loans at the moment, I just saw popped up there. I've actually heard that there are a number of banks like that not doing new loans here in Australia at the moment. The Fed's also injected a heap of money into the banking system. Yes, well, that might explain why the gold and silver price and ratio is where it is currently too. It's all pretty stable at the moment. Gold has dropped a little bit. It's still over 6,100 Australian dollars per ounce, and the spot price for silver is just under 75 at 74.91. So the perceived drop in precious metals prices after that, the big gains of just a couple of weeks ago, where we saw silver at $83, $84 an ounce. Now it's $10, $12 an ounce less than that, but it has not gone back through $70. It is not going back to $50 an ounce. Pretty much nowadays, I think the way that people are viewing this is that if you got into the market when you were buying at around $38, that's the cheapest you'll ever see it. If you got in at around 50, that's the cheapest you'll ever see it, because now looks like the base price is going to settle, at least in the short term, and this will be that short term, because we're in a cycle here, and the cycle is not complete. And this cycle is on such a scale that it is impossible for those people trying to suppress the silver and gold prices and trying to hide and protect their shorts in the COMEX market. All they're doing is throwing good money after bad, which is essentially, if you follow the QFS, is exactly what the plan should be. They need to drain the fiat money out of the fiat system. Now, everybody involved with the QFS says that our new quantum financial system is already running in parallel with current fiat banking systems and has been integrated into all the banks that it has been approved to go into, and those that it hasn't don't exist as banks anymore. So this system is ready to stand up and take over as soon as they flick the switch on the fiat banking system. We've heard that for 2 years. I still think we're closer to it than we are further away, but is it going to happen anytime soon? Well, this month supposedly held a number of big jigsaw pieces that slot into the puzzle. Today, American time, November the 3rd, we have heard that the QFS system will in fact take over, that the banking system, this is where the loans come into it. They're not going to be able to issue you a loan using the fiat banking system, because the fiat banking system uses usury interest. They're going to rob you with it. They create the money out of nothing and then charge you for it. So all that's coming to a grinding halt. And it has to, if we as a species are to be able to move forward and get out of the slavery debt trap that has been engineered. It's not something that we've just fallen into because we were a bit stupid. This has been engineered, and it has been propagated by successive governments. And you can't do this without having the right tools. And there's just 3 of them that were involved in what is a very large toolbox that dates back to even pre-Gough Whitlam, but Gough became the biggest tool in the shed in 1973. And from that date forward, successive prime ministers, including Malcolm Fraser, Bob Hawke, Paul Keating, the bunch of liberal flops that have come in and screwed the country because of their own greed or their own weak guttedness, unable to stand up on a global stage to the likes of the WEF and the WHO, or the UN for that matter. I see now that Scotty Morrison is coming out and encouraging Australians to do all the things that his government encouraged us not to do back in the day, particularly regarding immigration. He's coming out and talking about that in a new and interesting light. There is one bloke I've heard talking about our immigration and the problems with law enforcement, particularly as they pertain to Melbourne, and that is Jeff Kennett. Now, Kennett has come out in an interview today and basically said, if you're a youth offender who takes a machete or a blade and you are involved in a crime using a machete or a bladed instrument, You have no rights. If you are attacking somebody who does not have a blade or of any kind or a machete, you have no rights as the offender. Those rights are taken from you the moment you choose to pick up a sharp-edged weapon and attack someone with it. The rights should be reserved for the people who are living in fear, and they are in Victoria, living in fear. They're living in fear inside their own homes because of the home invasions happening on a nightly basis. They're living in fear as they're walking to work because people are getting stabbed on the friggin' streets by insane people who have some weird bent against whoever they happen to see. Now, that Chinese or Asian lady that was stabbed and had a punctured lung, we showed the video of it, was stabbed by a Caucasian lady who clearly has more than a bat loose in her belfry. And I don't think the courts are now publicly reporting that because she is undergoing psychiatric help. All right, well, that's one. But where did she come up with the idea? Could it have been she saw a whole bunch of weird little fellas running around in their makeup or masks, not showing their face, because they're not very brave, these little boys, with their big blades. They think they're tough with a big blade until they meet someone who takes that blade off them. And that's the thing I was always taught. And if you've ever been in a fighting realm, and you're taught by people who really do know how to fight, that if you bring a knife out in a fight, you better be prepared to have it taken off you and used against you. Because you would be amazed how motivated somebody gets if you pull a knife on them and they don't have a blade. And should they be motivated enough to just fluke getting it out of your hand and into theirs, then all the rules change. Because you were prepared to bring that knife out. That means you were prepared to use it. You've left the person you were attacking with no choice other than to pick that knife up and use it on you. And yet, we still have phenomenal amounts of youth picking up weapons and running around the streets of Melbourne, predominantly, they're doing it in other places, killing people. In Melbourne, which has been voted the happiest city in Australia and the 10th happiest city in the world. What the? Who? What? Who voted for that? Nobody that lives in Melbourne. But this is the kind of bullshit the mainstream media puts up as clickbait for you and says, oh, God, isn't Melbourne fabulous? A wonderful place, a wonderful place. And then on the front page of the paper today, they really explain what particularly this week is like in Melbourne. Oh, wrong one. This one, the face that stops the nation. I love it. Because tomorrow, that's what's going to happen. We all get distracted again. Well, I won't, because I couldn't give a shit what horse runs where. And I certainly won't be putting any money on it. But there'll be many of you who do, and it'll be the once a year time where you place a bet. That's what they live for, folks. And they try and get you to do it not once a year, but 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. So it used to be the race that stopped the nation, the Melbourne Cup. But now there's the Everest, which I think happened a week or 2 ago, which is, I think, if it's not now the richest horse race in Australia, then it's very close to, and looking to best the Melbourne Cup, if it hasn't already done so. I couldn't tell you if it has, because I don't give a ass about horse racing or betting or anything like that. I don't even care about the beautiful women that turn up to the birdcage and walk around and have mishaps or whatever. I do get a bit of a giggle out of some of the idiocy that gets put on display. A lot of the young people who go out for their first, second or third Melbourne Cup and are blind drunk by the end of the second race and cactus on the lawns well before cup time. That's always a bit of fun. And the delicate young ladies who've got out in their absolute finery, looking $1 million when they come out the gate and come in the gate. And as they go out the gate after the race, it looks like they've been put through a a Footscray brothel backwards about 15 times. So, yeah, it's an interesting little place to go and view. But if you're into horse racing, go for it. I couldn't care less. But if you're in Melbourne, no doubt, you'll be happy. You'll be really happy. I wonder if Mogadishu is in the top 10 places of happy countries to be in. Speaking of happy countries to be in, Nigeria may not be a very happy country for much longer. Nigeria is actually one of the, let's call it, functioning countries of Africa, functioning to a certain degree. Yes, they do have a very large scammer population there. Send me a mobile phone. I remember scam baiting one out of there for a long time. We eventually wound up tracking them to Ghana. And that was quite funny because we actually had some military people turn up on their doorstep, which scared the shit out of them, but we couldn't really do much other than scare the shit out of them. We had no powers to do anything other, but it was an interesting trip. I digress. Nigeria at the moment is under a great deal of pressure, particularly the Christians in Nigeria. They're being murdered in phenomenal rates. Now, Donald Trump has come out and made a statement that says, stop killing the Christians. If you're not going to stop killing the Christians, then America will come and help save the Christians. Now, once again, the Christians are back to needing to stand up again. And I think you're going to hear a lot more talk about Christians uniting. And as we spoke about on this show a week or two ago, and I'm sure we will speak about and hopefully do more with in the near future, is organise a Christian march, because that's the kind of march I will turn up at. I will march for my faith, because we are, as acutely articulated by Ricardo Bozzi, a Christian Western nation. We are set up on a Christian democratic bent. Our morals are Christian based. Our entire existence has been based on Christianity in this country. A Christian Western civilization, or a Western Christian civilization. And just to say you identify as a Christian doesn't mean you're a God botherer. It doesn't mean you have to own Bibles or be able to repeat verse from the Bibles at will. What it does mean is that you live your life a certain way. And I believe the majority of those of you watching this do live your life, broadly speaking, in line with the 10 Commandments. Now, if we all lived in line with the 10 Commandments and what they advise, they show a very clear path. A very clear path. But unfortunately, we have allowed ourselves to become programmed, and greed is good. Do you remember the 90s? Greed is good. Well, they managed to get that one of the 10 Commandments bent through the 90s, and it's only got worse. We've been pushed on every one of the 10 Commandments on every level over the years, and many people now just view them as, well, fantasy. I don't. I think we should all be looking at the 10 Commandments. Doesn't mean you've got to go to church and pray to God for them, or doesn't mean you've got to pray at all. Just look at it as a philosophy. Is that a good way to live your life? What would be a better way? Offer up an alternative to the laws that God laid down? Good luck with that. But I'm open to hearing your suggestions. I'd be ready to repent if I were you at some stage in the future. But yeah. So look, I think it's about time we started speaking more about Christians and Christianity and what Christian history truly is. And maybe this is an area of opportunity for FBN. It is something that I can talk about here on the show occasionally, but wouldn't it be interesting to have scholars, Christian scholars, who could educate us on the Christian history, dating back to when the Christians have been called upon to save Christianity, to save civilization. Because if you look back, it's always the Christians that do this in the end. And it's always been underestimated by those against Christianity, just how big the Christian community is. They think of it in church in terms of how many people go to church around the world. Well, there's billions of people that go to church every Sunday and many other times during the week. Billions of them. But there are billions more that don't, but still have an alignment with a Christian ethos, still live their lives, broadly speaking, in a Christian way. And if push comes to shove, will stand up to protect their Christianity and their freedom. And that, my friends, is the day life will truly change all around the world, when the Christians stand up and say, enough. And God knows there are plenty of us standing up saying enough. I watched a wonderful live this morning done by Wade Northhausen from Billboard Battalion. Wade is in Canberra, or was this morning, and he was out front of Parliament House calling out that piece of human bloody filth, Marine Faruqi, who has the audacity to wear articles of clothing that, you know, she would deem inappropriate if an Australian wore a cultural anything into the house, but she seems to wear her culture's little clothes, bits and pieces quite happily, and would be offended if we would bring it up. This woman is, as Wade, and I commend you, go and have a look at the Billboard Battalion live from this morning, because Wade outlines exactly the hypocrisy of our supposed politicians who are supposedly working for the people of this country. They are not. If they were, they would have called out that raving Marine Faruqi some time ago and brought her to heel inside that place, where respect isn't just shown. Well, respect is very rarely shown, but there are some senators who do show due and proper respect to the people of this nation that they are there to represent. But they are very few and far between. Malcolm Roberts and his group, or should I say Pauline Hanson and her group, are certainly leaders in that pack, but Antic is also someone who's doing a lot of that. And there are others. There aren't enough. That's what Wade's live was about this morning. The fact is, not enough people are calling out the hypocrisy, and not enough people are stopping and calling out the liars that are the politicians representing us in that place. If you have, you know, had a brain injury like I have, and you have to find yourself sitting down watching hours of estimates committee meetings, because you've really got to have a brain injury to sit through some of that shit, I tell you. And if I haven't got one now, I probably will have by the end of my time watching this shit. However, if we don't take time to avail ourselves of things like estimates, where, I'll be honest, Malcolm Roberts is a standout once again. So too are a couple of other senators, although I haven't seen too much from Antic. James Patterson from the Liberals is working particularly Home Affairs very hard, and the Public Service Administration, he's pushing them very hard. But these bureaucrats that are summoned to appear at these estimates meetings hold no fear. They hold no fear that this, you know, whether it be Roberts or Antic or any other senator, They hold no fear that these people can do anything to them, because they can't. They're being protected by their minister. And I think if you are stupid enough, like I am, brain dead enough to sit down and watch these estimates meetings, you'll get a few takeaways out of it. You'll get to figure out that 99% of these departments are run by women who have assistants who are women, who have assistants who are women, and then there might be a bloke who stands up in the background there somewhere. Now, that's a great thing. I've got no problem with women being, in powerful positions running bureaucracies. What I do have a problem with is if they're applying less than logical reasoning, and that they have been either appointed because the government needed the right sex person in the job rather than the person with the right level of competency. What I take away from watching these estimates meetings and watching these women who lead these departments, my takeaway is that they can't answer questions. They refuse to answer. Oh, we'll take that on notice. We'll take that on notice. Oh, well, we could answer this, but no, we'll take that on notice. Now, they're using that so that they can go away and engineer the reply using exactly the right words so that they can not be attributed to actually saying anything. And this is what Malcolm Roberts and others have been trying to stop them from doing. These are pretty basic questions. Can't you answer them? No, I can't. I'll take that question on notice. And when he pushes them about why they need to take what should be pretty basic questions for their portfolios, for their departments of which they are in charge, they don't seem to know even the basic answers. I'll take that on notice. Now, that either leaves them as incompetent in their job, in that they do not have a hand, much less any kind of knowledge over their job or what's going on inside it, or they are just completely inept, and all they are good at doing is providing arse-covering excuses for other public servants and the minister when required. Now, when these public servants, I hate calling them that because they don't serve the public, when these bastards are put up on estimates and they are found to be less than truthful, found to be hedging, or they get very nervous because they've been caught and they don't want to talk about something, and you can see them, they react. They don't want to talk about this. I'll take that on note, or I'll have to ask my colleague, or I'll have to, and they make no eye contact. Their body language is the most telling statement in those estimates meetings, because most of them are unable to present strongly on a question they haven't been prepared for. And Roberts, to his credit, is worth more than one of those questions usually every time. So if you can stomach sitting through estimates at the moment, I would recommend James Patterson and Malcolm Roberts as some worthy ones to be sitting through. James Patterson particularly on the Department of Home Affairs. The Secretary for the Department of Home Affairs, ladies and gentlemen, holds all the bodies. She knows where every body is buried in the entire government. Not just this one, but for previous ones. Not just previous Labor ones, previous Liberal ones as well. This is the kind of dug-in thing that lives inside our public service. And this is how they get to hide truth from us, because the public servants don't change. The politicians do. All the public servants do is work their way up through their little class system, their classification system, their Freemason rights. And when they get to the appropriate level, then they start the real ass-guarding. And you watch that bitch from Home Affairs. She is a piece of work. Murray Watt is another one, the Environment Minister. He is always on the front foot trying to protect the public servants, because he doesn't want them answering questions about the government's renewables scheme. He doesn't want them answering questions about the weather and anything to do with, fact versus fiction in those the weather data. The CSIRO, to his credit, Malcolm Roberts actually got a scalp. He got a scalp of the bloke who heads the CSIRO, who made a bit over $1 million a year, and showed just how incompetent or corrupt he was in estimates. Must be going back 18 months or so now. I'm not sure if he was the head guy or the second guy, but he treated Malcolm Roberts, Senator of Australia, with absolute contempt, answering the questions that the senator put forward. Well, it took a little while, but that guy all of a sudden didn't have a job at the CSIRO anymore. And I'm not sure that he's got a job back in Australia. He will have a job because all of those climate sycophants would quite happily stick him in their organisation, particularly if he had a nose for getting funding out of people. Horrible things that they are. Well, it could be worse. Could be in Victoria. The new Barbie went on sale there. That's called Socialist Barbie, and it looks just like the Premier. Apparently, you'll be able to get that at every new Kmart, and you won't have to threaten anybody with a machete. They are just available on the shelves. Good on you. The King is having a few issues. Andrew has been a bit of a problem. So Andrew is now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and will no longer be Prince of anything. But questions are now being asked about Jimmy Savile's association with King Charles. Now, Savile was one of England's worst pedophiles, and sadly, it was only discovered after his death. But this is a man who was known to pay a morgue technician for access to dead bodies in morgues, particularly children's dead bodies, where he would do unspeakable things. He was also known and had been almost charged with 4 counts of rape of an intellectually disabled girl who he clearly had a lot of dealings with. He was also known to have been involved in certain parties and certain events that happened inside Buckingham Palace over the years as a younger Prince Charles was working his way up through Royal Society. Now, people of a certain age will remember that the young Prince Charles was known for his cavorting with very beautiful women. Now, I can't remember if Koo Stark was one of Andrew's or was one of Charles's, but Koo Stark was a model back in the 70s, 80s, thereabouts, I want to say. I also happen to know a lady who had a liaison with then Prince Charles when he came out here to go to school in Victoria, of all places, Timbertop, back in 1966, I want to say, or 67. Now, it was one of those young love type relationships, I'm led to believe. And, I don't know if I might have said too much already. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about this. However, that I know. Oh, geez, I don't know if I've said too much already. I know that relationship was ongoing until probably 15 years ago. I don't think I can say any more. I better shut up. I think I've probably already said too much. I should have. Don't know how I got onto that. Anyway, something good's happened in Queensland finally. It's called Daniel's Law. Queensland have finally put in a Queensland public child sex register. The offenders list should be a national list, but at least now Queensland has one, Victoria has one, I believe New South Wales has one. South Australia, I don't think has one, neither does Western Australia, although I believe Western Australia was working on it, so they might have it by now. But this is something that every state in Australia should have. And there should also be a national register, somewhere that you can just type in and get details of the rock spiders, as Mr. Bill puts it, who get moved into your area by the do-gooders in the administration of the criminal system. Now, those do-gooders are currently exercising their power to the fullest extent in Victoria, where machete-wielding teenagers who are out on bail get rearrested for wielding machetes and attacking people in public, the same thing they're on bail for, and they get bailed again. When are the people of Victoria going to signify they've had enough? Can I tell you that the people of Italy appear to have had enough? They have risen up nationally, and they have done so over not pedophilia, but digital ID. They have taken to the streets of Italy, not just Rome, but taken to the streets all round, protesting the introduction of digital ID. They have also taken over, or did take over, the Italian Parliament and made it very clear to those parliamentarians who thought they were doing something for the people that they had it very wrong, and that the Italian people do not want digital ID in any way, shape or form, and that should the government introduce it, there would be consequences. Now, I don't believe the Italian government are going to introduce digital ID. We need that sort of level of emotional commitment, let's call it, to the movement here in Australia. We need to go to our parliaments and tell them this is how it's going to be. Take over those places. Do not leave them until you are satisfied that those people who claim to represent the people of Australia actually do represent the people of Australia, not a foreign belligerent corporation who is hell-bent on killing as many of us as possible and taxing what's left beyond existence and straight into debt slavery. It has to end, folks. And it can only end with people like you, like me, like Vince, standing up and doing something about it. Speaking of standing up and doing things about it, Melbourne City Council have unwittingly, I think, helped Victorians fully appreciate how truly useful the Victorian government is and their enforcement arm, the Victoria Police. Because now Melbourne City Council have introduced community safety officers. Don't they look a bit like police? They're just missing the Roman wreath and the pentagram badge. But rest assured, inside that little array of pockets on those vests that they're wearing, aside from a torch and a camera and a radio, there's spray. They'll have restraints, which may not be handcuffs. They might be zip ties. But these community safety officers have been endowed with powers which I think are going to be proven interesting if ever put into a court and tested. These community safety officers represent themselves as police, but have no powers. No powers at all. In fact, I'm not even sure that these community officers have enough power to issue you a parking fine. They're not like the grey ghosts. And if you do see them, you can be guaranteed they won't be walking around by themselves. They'll be walking around in numbers. Because, just like the police of today in Victoria, they can't walk around by themselves. They cop a flogging. That's a verbal one, because people are sick and tired of the lies, the deception, and the absolute brutality of the Victorian police force. And those people in Victoria have been shown time and time again that the police will do the bidding of their masters. They will not look after the people of that state. And while we hear the platitudes of the police commissioners and their under things saying, oh, things are changing, we're doing better, you're not doing better. You're not doing better. You'll only be doing better when you start arresting the politicians, when you start protecting the people and putting charges against those politicians, those elites that have been doing this shit to us for an eternity. Until Victoria Police and the Australian Defence Forces grow enough testicular fortitude to put their own thoughts of personal concern behind them and actually do the job they said they were going to do, I have no respect for them. You can't respect an enforcement agency that only enforces the rules of those looking to corrupt and coerce you. They're the brown shirts. They're the bastards that will kill you because some pimple-assed politician somewhere said that, oh no, these people must be jabbed. Oh no, they must wear a mask. Oh no, they must submit. Well, we will not submit. We will fight. And if the fight needs to become kinetic, it will be a Christian kinetic fight. And there aren't enough police or defence personnel in this country to stand up against the Christians. There aren't enough in the world. I encourage you folks, have a conversation with the good Lord about this. Go and do a little bit of history, discovery. Find out where the Christians stood up and what happened when they did throughout the last 2,000 years. The time is coming. We've been saying this is a spiritual war. Well, for God's sake, folks, start getting a bit spiritual. Start understanding it a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to wind up with numbtards like this leading the country. Now, this is something that really shocked me. It's a Halloween thing put together by one of our representatives in this country. Now, when you're watching this, I want you to think about the people that are advising this woman and telling her that this sort of shit is okay. You should be doing this. And if they're doing this kind, offering this kind of advice for this kind of bullshit, what sort of advice are they offering on the big issue?
Oh, it's a scary day today in the colony, and yep, it's a scary black woman. I think it's time to go feed the trolls. Let's start with this one. Australia is a racist colony. Here we go, trolls. White Australia has a black history. Trolls. Remember this one? Not my king. Here we go, trolls. Eat that one.
I've had enough. You get the idea. That thing represents us in Parliament. And I don't know that she does it terribly well at any level or at any stage, but that was her social media pick for Halloween. And I imagine those trolls in the background were members of her staff who advised her on what a great and funny and really hip piece of viral content that would make. Frankly, there was another piece that I found that same day that I thought was worthy of much more viral exposure.
And here's the thing about us Indian immigrants. We are some of the smartest and the most hardworking people in Australia. And so you will see more and more of us and more in prominent positions in the future. You will see Indian business owners doing better and better in prominent places. You will see Indian politicians as well. Now, as a white Australian, if that is something that is bothering you, then maybe you are the one who's not fitting into this new Australia.
You're the problem, not them, not us. And look, he's just an Indian, but it could be Sri Lankan, it could be Nigerian, it could be Sudanese, it could be any number of flavors of immigrants that we have flooding through our borders at the moment at the invitation of this corrupt foreign occupying organization. It's enough for me to say...
And what a clustered fuck this is.
Couldn't agree more with the old bloke, to be honest with you. So much so that I've decided we're going to sell the bus. I'm going to start a GoFundMe page, and the Voice of Freedom is now going to start taking the message to the streets in an entirely different matter. If you would like to help fund this, we need your help. I will have a GoFundMe address for you very shortly, but I think we're going to pick up 2 of these. They're called Jetsons. Only about $178,000 each, and I'll have to lose about 10 kilos before I can fly it. But if you'd like to help us, have I got a deal for you? So to speak. All right, folks, going to love you and leave you. We've run over a little tonight. But I've managed to get out most of what I wanted to talk about tonight. And please, if you've got some suggestions about things you might like to see on the FBN channel, or you might like to present, is there something you'd like to do? Do you do a bit of research? Are you a researcher? Are you somebody who likes to really dig down into things? I have a friend in the radio business who wants to come on and do a podcast. And while he has some interesting and great ideas, I don't think he actually understands the level and the depth of understanding that has to go into some of this subject matter. But he did come up with a very interesting topic. Government wastage. He'd like to do a podcast on government wastage. So would I. I said to him, where do you start? Oh, I don't know. He said, you're the one that knows more about politics than me. Well, government wastage is such a phenomenal problem in this country. Where do we start? How do you pick a point? Well, that's why we need somebody who is good at numbers, good at looking at the budget and able to then look at the expenses against the budget and say, well, hey, why did this happen? Or why did that happen? Or what did the other? We need a Dave. I was saying this to Vince today. Do you remember the movie Dave? It starred Kevin, forgotten his name, not Costner. He was in A Fish Called Wanda. Kevin Kline. And he played a fella named Dave, who was just, I think, an average accountant or school teacher or something who taught economics in a little country school in America. And he just happened to look like the president of the United States. So in this little country town, he'd turn up and do little presidential openings and that kind of crap. Ha, ha, ha. Until the president died and they needed a lookalike, and they went and got Dave. Now, this is a great story for the corruption behind government, but also for what Dave was able to achieve. Because while he was initially given the job just to stand there and look like the president, not say anything, certainly not make policy decisions, he got to see the inner workings of the government, and he wanted to fix it. He wanted to make life better for all Americans. And he was ostensibly the president. So what did he do? Well, he called in one of his accountant mates from the little town, and they went through the budget. And together, they found X amount of billions of dollars they could cut from the budget. And it was a great movie, wonderful. We need a Dave. We need someone who can come through and look at, I don't know, maybe each department. And let's start with the Department of Home Affairs. All right? And let's look at how much money is wasted. The decisions that go, that nobody really gets told about, right? And there was one recently made where a decision, and it was a $9 million decision. This decision was made to go ahead with a certain, I don't know if it was a concrete pour or installation of something that, fairly significant. Anyway, after it had all been installed, they figured out they hadn't done something in a certain step that was rather crucial in all the steps, and they hadn't done that, and it needed to be done before they did the $9 million job. And what happened? Well, they had to tear down the $9 million job and start again. Now, that's wastage. How do we find that? How do we find all about it? Yeah, brother, is he wasted Burnside Council? Yeah, wow, nothing wrong with it now, scrap. Right, well, that's the kind of wastage we need to know about. But I need somebody. Vince and I can't do it. We don't have those sorts of brains. So we need somebody who has one of those analytical numbers kinds of brains. And it's obviously not going to be Cass because she's busy and tied up with her own business and going to yoga and whatever else. So good luck to her. What we need is someone who can spend a bit of time and who can educate Vince and I and maybe a select panel that is put together as part of this podcast. And I would hope that we might be able to invite the likes of Senator Roberts, maybe Gerard Rennick, maybe Senator Antic, maybe the Catters, and get them on a round table on FBN to discuss this wastage, to identify it, to point out who is responsible for it. And I think that's probably the key. Nobody is responsible for the wastage. Because the beautiful thing about working in a bureaucracy the size of Australia's is that you only need to give your first name and nobody cares if you give the wrong one. There is no accountability for our bureaucrats. Who was the bureaucrat? Who was the minister that signed off on that $9 million waste? And how is that going to be made up to the Australian taxpayer? Do you think if those making the decisions were held accountable for them, in a sense that they could go to jail for fiduciary mismanagement or financial mismanagement, breach of fiduciary duties, because they have to face a court of people like you and I to justify their stupidity? How do these people keep their jobs? Or if they've really screwed up, they get sacked, but wind up with a job, same level, different department. They just get absorbed back into the bureaucracy. Filth and scum that needs to be outed at every turn. And accountability for the decisions of government. Meaning if you make a decision that blows $9, $10, $20, $100 million, you need to answer for that. And if that's going to jail for the next 15 years to turn big rocks into little rocks so that those little rocks can be used to help prepare a road that goes to fucking nowhere because you and your government didn't plan it right, then so be it. The filth that calls itself the leaders of this country need to be held accountable. And that accountability needs to be serious. They need to go and spend time in Pentridge. Oh, Pentridge doesn't exist anymore. Silverwater then. Or Goulburn. Because the level of assault that they have committed upon the Australian public is of such a high level that they should be in Supermax for the rest of their days, along with the dickhead drivers who kill people. Have a good one, folks. I'll talk to you in about an hour when I pick up the boys.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!